Hello, everybody. It's Brian David Johnson, and this is the Science Fiction Prototyping Podcast, taken from the Science Fiction Prototyping column in the IEEE Computer Magazine. This month, the column is all about Steve, the steampunk robot. I did not really think I would be writing an article about robots this month, but I simply had to. I was of all places, I was on vacation. I was out on the Oregon coast with a group of friends, and as I was walking back from the beach one day, a very dear friend of mine has a young son by the name of Cole, and as we were walking back from the beach, Cole looked up at me and said, "My dad tells me you make robots." And we ended up having a conversation about robots and building robots, and he thought maybe he was too young to build a robot, and I told him all about the 21st Century Robot Project, a project that we have chronicled at length here in the Science Fiction Prototyping column. And we had a conversation about it, and I told him that anybody could build a robot because it all starts in your imagination. Much like all science fiction prototypes, they begin in your imagination, and then we use the prototypes as a requirements document to go out and build the technologies. And so over that weekend, Cole came back and told me more about his robot, and that his robot would be named Steve, and that Steve would be a steampunk robot. And he told me all about what Steve would do and how he would tell jokes, and he'd be able to tell good jokes and bad jokes because there would be a switch on the back of Steve's head, and one would say good jokes, and on the other side of the switch it would say bad jokes, and you could switch it back and forth. And it was just lovely. And Cole was even good enough to actually draw a picture of what Steve, the steampunk robot, would look like. And I used that as a part of this column. I felt like this month we had to chronicle that. How could you not? Finding yourself accidentally building a robot over a weekend with a young mind like Cole. And as a part of the article, I then reached out to my creative collaborator and illustrator that we've all gotten to know quite well in the science fiction prototyping column, Sandy Winkleman. And so Sandy ended up turning Cole's drawing into the beginnings of a drawing for an actual 21st century robot. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to call Sandy and have Sandy kind of tell us about what was the process of taking Cole's drawings and actually turning them into Steve, the steampunk robot. So let's hear what Sandy has to say, and then we'll be back. So Sandy, welcome back to the Science Fiction Prototyping Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So, Sandy, as we both have discussed, we didn't expect this column was going to happen. It was a complete sort of accident when I was on vacation out at the Oregon coast and then came back and was so captured by Cole's vision for Steve, the steampunk robot, that I thought we had to kind of chronicle it and capture it and put it into the science fiction prototyping column. What did you think about Steve, the steampunk robot, when I sent you the article and I sent you the drawing from Cole?
Well, I think originally you told me that you had Cole's drawing and that it was a steampunk robot, and my initial thought is I'm not crazy about steampunk, but then when I actually saw the drawing and the fact that he's wearing a top hat, I was bowled over and just was totally into it and knew I had to do it. Just having that much character in a robot, that's what I liked. He had so much character, I guess, in the robot already that it made my job really easy, that I was excited to do it.
So it's really it was the top hat that won you over, huh?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the kid put a top hat on a robot already. He already had accessories built in. It was great. I loved it.
So now, Sandy, we've been doing the 21st Century Robot Project for many years now, and you've been first sort of creating robots with you and I and creating many, many different types of robots and then actually making those robots real. And then over the past couple years, we've been spending a lot of time sort of taking robotic visions from people, and mainly from young minds, from people who are, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, taking them as the inspiration, getting them to build their own robots and design their own robots. And you've been a key sort of step in that. So the way that we bring them into reality is that you know the robots so well, not only the fictional robots, but you also know the technical side. We've done enough work in building robots that you're kind of this integral part of the design process of taking these wild visions from these young minds and actually getting them into a certain style so that we can then actually turn them into real robots. Now that you've been doing that multiple times, what has that been like? Like, what have you learned?
What have I learned? I guess I've just learned, I learned a lot about just how robots are built, obviously, and, gosh, that's a good question. What have I learned? I've learned that it's a real joy. I know that. I mean, it's a lot of fun doing this for the kids, mostly because especially when we did it the first time and seeing the kids' reactions and everything. What I've learned about robots, I'm not real sure. I mean, I know more about the mechanics than I ever thought I would. Especially when we were doing Cole's robot, I think it was Andrew that gave us the legs that originally thought for the spider legs and everything.
Right, yeah, we reached out to Andrew Alter from Charleston Robotics, who is another part of the 21st Century Robot Project. And Andrew's really our hardware and software lead. And yeah, we went to Andrew, and I sent Andrew the same things that I sent you, and said, hey, look, here's a robot that's a crawler. It's actually not a ball robot or a biped robot. It's actually a crawler, and it's cute. Most crawlers are kind of creepy looking, but this one was actually cute.
Yeah,
and
that's what got me excited about it too. It's like I've always wanted to do a crawler, but every time I think of doing them, they end up looking really creepy. And it was great to see Cole's drawing, and I just knew that it would work. He just knew that it would be cool and not threatening and cute and fun and exciting, and have a lot of character.
And I know Andrew's kind of excited. He's thinking that we may actually one day yet build, Steve, the steampunk robot. Well, listen, Sandy, as always, thank you so much for joining us on the Science Fiction Prototyping column, and I'm sure we're going to have you back real soon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
I think it's great that Sandy was won over by Cole's top hat, the top hat that was on Steve, the steampunk robot. And that's really one of the things that I can tell you is we've been really trying to bring these robots from imagination to reality. Really the power of these young minds that when both Sandy and I and even Andrew Alter have been trying to make crawlers, right, the robots that aren't moving on balls or aren't walking around on two legs that might have 6 legs or 8 legs that look a bit like a spider or a crab. Usually when we do them, they do look kind of creepy. I mean, they look like spiders or crabs, which kind of can look creepy. And I think it's one of the things that Cole did simply by being himself, by simply, imagining a really cool, funny, joke-telling robot that had a top hat on. It completely blew by anything that Sandy or Andrew or myself had come up with. And I think that's the power and the magic of sort of starting in the imagination, that working with these young minds to create these science fiction prototypes, essentially, that we can then pull back into and use engineering, use design, and use the work that we're doing to actually turn them into real robots, real technology, but that are really kind of imbued with that sense of imagination and that sense of wonder that normally if it was done by an adult, it may not have that. That really, somebody like Cole really imbued his humanity, imbued his excitement into his design, and that rubbed off. That rubbed off on myself. That rubbed off on Sandy to actually give him the inspiration to make it. And, I think maybe my hope that it'll rub off on Andrew. Maybe we'll actually see Steve the steampunk robot walking around here one day. Well, I want to thank you for joining me on the Science Fiction Prototyping Podcast. As always, if you've got any questions or any ideas for future columns, or you would like to share a science fiction prototype of your own, you can always get in touch with me at brian.david.johnson@intel.com, or you can always follow me on Twitter. I'm at IntelFuturist. So thanks again for joining me, and I will talk to you on the next podcast. Bye now.